Alright, Alien Earth, episodes 3 and 4, titled Metamorphosis and Observation. We watched them, and now we're here to talk about them. How are you liking the show so far, Tyler?
It's, we said from the first two episodes, we were still hopeful of where it was going to go. You know, it had a great look, it had a great feel. You know, we loved some of the music in it. We loved the kind of old school style, but there was a lot of warning signs in those first two episodes, especially for me that I raised. I think you enjoyed it a bit more than I did.
Yeah.
And
I'm kind of like slowly coming to your side.
I thought you might be, because the last two episodes have been terrible. I thought there's been little glimmers of hope here and there, but yeah, the overall direction, you know, my worry is about the kid synths in the adult bodies. They've now become the central focus of the story.
Yeah.
They have the most screen time now, and
that either works for you or it doesn't. So
yeah. Hey, if you, and you know, I mentioned to you before we started recording that, you know, I shared our first review around, and it's very divisive in how people are receiving the show. People seem to love it, and they think the humor element of that is great, and they love the clash of tones, and that it's a fresh new take on the Alien, unlike the Alien franchise. But yeah, I just don't see it that way. I feel like it's just because it's a fresh new thing doesn't make it good for me personally. I don't relate comedy and silly humor to pure sci-fi horror and dread. Like, that's what I think Alien should be. And yeah, the last two episodes, episode 3 and 4, I think there's been a lot of really bad stuff here, and
we'll get into it for sure. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'm still liking the show enough. Like, I'm interested in seeing where it goes. The show keeps giving me enough to keep me entertained. But episode 3 and 4 are definitely the worst episodes so far. Even though I'm trying to judge this as its own thing, you know, its own story set in the Alien universe, trying not to think about how it connects to the rest of the franchise. I'll do that once the show is over, see how the puzzle piece fits or doesn't fit, which seems to be the case. But yeah, especially this third episode, which we'll get into right now, I think was definitely meandering and a bit directionless, and mostly setting up stuff for future developments. So why don't we get into the plot a little bit so that we can discuss what we liked and disliked. I guess the like column will be very short for you, Tyler.
You're on my ship.
The ship belongs to me now.
We left our characters at the end of episode 2 with a xenomorph attacking and taking Joe, Wendy's brother, away, and Wendy chasing after him.
We have also, just as a note, we have multiple of those exact scenes already, where either somebody jumps off these like broken holes of the ship into this like infinite drop, and they're just fine, and the characters stand over this clearly sound-staged
CGI
backdrop. Yeah. And you know, Joe just falls into this infinite hole, and it also happens to another character later in episode 3. It's like I don't know, it's the geography of what was happening on the ship is so bizarre. Like,
yeah,
it's so hard
really
to
weird.
work out what's going on.
I guess, you know, because the ship crashed into a building, into a city, so they go from the ship to more mundane settings. But at some point at the beginning of the episode, Wendy drops down into like what looks like a tunnel, and I was like, what is this doing here? I thought we were
It's like, wait, where are we?
Exactly. But yeah, basically we have Wendy finding Joe, protecting Joe from the xenomorph. She manages to kill the xenomorph in an action sequence that we don't get to see because they are inside like this big elevator. Wendy manages to kill the xenomorph, to cut the head off clean, like, which was a bit...
Decapitates it with, I don't know whether you remember, but when she picked up that blade, it was a paper cutter from her room that she gets that blade from.
Yeah.
And so that is some seriously strong paper cutter that can not only cut through a Xeno's neck, but also go through all the acid blood and be absolutely fine. This is fucking cartoon level logic right here. And also, this again doesn't make any sense. I mean, the Xeno takes Joe into this back of this truck.
I guess they want to infect him with the facehugger like they do sometimes, you know.
Oh, absolutely. That's, you know, I suppose the main thing that a Xeno does is capture and want to breed. It wants to stick you to the wall. So
It either kills when it's surrounded or like feels threatened, it kills everyone, or it kidnaps you so that it can then put an egg in your face.
yeah. And so Joe gets, obviously, because he's got plot armor. He's one of the he gets spared in every single moment of murder. And the Xeno carries.
What do you mean? They destroyed one of his lungs,
Oh yeah.
which is basically a scratch in this futuristic
Which is
setting.
completely inconsequential, basically. And yeah, the Xeno takes him to the back of this meat truck. I guess because it's cool and scary.
Yeah.
And the Xeno knows that too, and puts like a little bit of Pritt stick glue to stick him to the wall. There was like barely anything on him, and Wendy pulls him off the wall. It's I was already not liking this. Just how much sort of contrivance there is with how Joe is surviving these situations already.
I thought it took him to the meat van because he wanted to keep with the Peter Pan theme that they're really harping on, because then at some point when he's trying to defend himself, he picks up a hook, like a meat hook, and tries to use that as a weapon. So it's like, oh, hook, like Peter Pan. It's like, is that a connection that they made, or is it just me?
I wouldn't be surprised. Everything in this series is laced with Peter Pan imagery and themes.
I felt it was cute at first, like so many things that were introduced in the show. I was like, oh, I like this. But then they drive it into the fucking ground. Like it's so
heavy-handed.
overplayed. Like a theme is a theme. It's not the story.
Yeah. It's supposed to be subtle and in the background, and almost every episode they're actually talking about Peter Pan. I'll just jump ahead a little slightly, but in episode 4 you get the kid genius being like,
is reading out Peter Pan stuff.
Doing what the audience should be doing. He's like, oh wait, now you can hear the ticking clock, just like
the
Hook
crocodile
did.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah man, we fucking get it. It's obvious. You don't need to tell us.
That could have been like a fun thing to say in like an analysis of the show, oh, like they did this parallel with the character from Peter Pan. But when a character says it, it feels cheap. It feels like you're trying to draw attention to how smart you are, that you're trying to create these parallels in the story.
Well, they're also treating the audience like dummies as well. It's like they get, maybe they didn't think people would pick up on these very subtle Peter Pan themes that they're doing, and so they had to spell it out for you.
Yeah. The other like episode by episode kind of review that we did was for The Last of Us season 2, and they did something similar there. Like there was this recurring image of this bug that symbolizes death.
Oh my god, yeah, I remember. I know what you're gonna say.
And it's in the game too, and it's very subtle. It's just something that you can look into, you can find, and maybe you can interpret it in a way. But no, in the show they have Pedro Pascal go to the fucking therapist character and be like, what does this symbol mean? And you have the therapist, who's the worst character in the show, basically giving you the Wikipedia page of what what the thing means and why it's important to the show. And I find it so cheap.
She also says it in such a blasé way, like, oh, I don't know, I guess stupid people think it means this. And it's like, well, no, actually, this is exactly the intention of the writers of the show.
Exactly. So. But enough of The Last of Us. We're talking about aliens. So we got Wendy killing the xenomorph, getting injured in the process, and then we have Kirsch.
Also, such a missed opportunity to do something cool and grotesque with Wendy. Like, you pull the doors of the lift and you see the Xeno dead, and you could see Wendy like half decapitated, or her face is half caved in, and she's making like weird noises and she can't talk properly, like you had in previous Alien films. But no, you do like this like tiny little drop of milk blood coming out of her hairline.
That's exactly what I was expecting, because when we first see her, you can only see one side of her face, and I thought we would have like a Gustavo Fring moment where she turns and like half of the face is like being eaten by acid blood or something. But they didn't do it.
Such a missed opportunity.
But yeah, so we have this. They're both very injured. Joe's lung was pierced by the xenomorph tail.
The Xeno forgets to use its tail when, oh my god. I mean, you remember when Wendy's like got it. Wendy's like, how does she have it? She's got it trapped somehow, or like she's got its face trap.
Yeah,
What
the
does
hook.
she do? Do you remember?
She grabs the hook and
Yeah,
uses it
that's
to
it.
take the thong with the mouth.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's pulling the Xeno along with its little mouth, and its tail is just wagging behind it. And I was just watching it, being like, "Fucking slice her with
Yeah.
your tail. Slice her with your tail. What the fuck are you doing?"
These are just the first 2 minutes of the episode, guys. Like this is, yeah.
Arguably, though, this is probably the worst scene in the whole of the show so far for me.
Yeah. And we get the other side of what's happening is Kirsch, who's Timothy Olyphant's character, with the other Lost Boys, and they then take the bodies back to Neverland.
And we get the worst, this music montage, slow motion sequence. At this point, I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on in this show anymore? Seriously. It's like, they're treating it with such reverence, and it's like, oh, the heroes are returning from their journey, and it's like the journey was 30 minutes long, like the adventure.
Yeah, and also like, why are they bringing those soldiers along? I didn't get the logic of that.
Well, you know why we need some cannon fodder to eat in the final few episodes. So that will be them, I guess.
Yeah, like they took Joe, who's clearly injured, and maybe like if Wendy was conscious in that moment, she would have been like, oh, I need to bring my brother along because he needs medical care or whatever. But they could have taken them to whatever prodigy facility they had in the city. They were under no obligation to bring them along, and they provide no explanation for doing so. Maybe they did so because they saw the aliens, but if that's the case, it's not really clearly stated in the episode. So I was like,
yeah, in episode 4 they kind of explain why they keep Joe around, but everyone else not. That makes no sense at all. And I don't think the explanation for why they keep Joe around really makes sense, considering how much problems he's already causing, just him being there around them.
And also it feels like something that they'd figure out after the fact. Like, not, oh, we bring Joe along because of this reason, but like once Joe is here, then we're like, okay, we're gonna keep him around for this reason. It just feels weird that they are on this super secret island and they're like, some useless soldiers from New Siam, sure, let's bring them along. But before we get into because now we change setting and we go back to Neverland, and that's where we're gonna spend most of the time for episode 3 and 4. But there was a scene that I actually quite liked with a specific moment that really, really bugged me, and it's the scene at the beginning of the episode where the Lost Boys run into Morrow, the cyborg guy.
You described it perfectly, because Morrow is acting his goddamn little heart out, and he's sweating like a motherfucker, and he's dripping with sweat as he's like uploading that information to his brain, and he's questioning the two idiot boys.
Yeah, Slidely and the other guy.
Anytime it cuts to them, it's stupid. As soon as we cut away and we turn the camera around the other side, it's like, wow, there's some good stuff happening here.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm saying like the show, keeps giving me enough that I'm like, okay, I want to keep watching, because there's these few characters that are really compelling to me, Kirsch and Morrow, and we get into a few others later, but like the writing of these characters is really uneven. Like,
yeah, the problem is, I get it, you're saying that's interesting, but if you remember, that scene begins with the two idiot synth kids going, bro. And it's like, I just seen big spider monster, I'm scared.
Yeah.
It ruins it for me.
Yeah, and then we get Morrow, who's this tragic figure, and we learn a bit more about him in this episode and in the following episode. He's been away from Earth for like 65 years. He had a daughter, and maybe this daughter met some kind of tragic end, and that's why he decided to become a cyborg and sort of renounce humanity. And he has this conversation later with Yutani on the phone, and then they chat with Slightly, and there's this central thematic question that he brings up, that is, when is a machine not a machine? And that's something that I'm curious about, but I'm not trusting the showrunners to come up with something interesting to answer that question.
If you want to just go watch Blade Runner.
Yeah.
If you want to deal with those kind of concepts, just go watch Blade Runner. This is not going to deal with it in an intelligent or interesting way, I doubt.
And the reason why I say this, and I get the feeling that you agree, is that like this scene is the perfect example because we have a very cool character like Moro doing something cool, and then you have these other characters who are not as cool. And, not every character needs to be cool. If they have like an interesting function in the story, that's fine. But we have some dialogue that just makes me roll my eyes. And I want to give you like a very specific example because I think this is a problem that permeates the show. When Kirsch is confronting Moro at the beginning of the episode in this scene that we were talking about, Kirsch says something about the friend he lost in the crash. And Moro is like, I don't have any friends. And then slightly, one of the lost boys comes in with his childish enthusiasm and he's like, everybody needs friends. And I don't know if this is a nitpick. And I don't think it is, because it's such a random line to throw in. And it is so clearly set up for something. And surely enough, later in the episode, Moro calls slightly on the phone that he implanted something on his neck and references this line, everybody needs friends, to try to get him to trust him. And my problem with this is that I have no problem in you trying to set up a line that you need in the show for storytelling. Like sometimes you need to set up specific lines and you need to find a way for your characters to get to those lines as naturally as possible. And it's a really hard thing to do. It takes numerous drafts and redrafts to get to a point where the dialogue flows naturally while also giving you those hooks, those moments that you as a writer need for the story to happen the way that you want it to happen.
Drafts? I don't think these guys know anything about drafts. This is the first draft. It was perfect. It didn't need any more work, Tommy.
It's a balancing act that you're trying to, and you want people to follow the conversation like it's just people talking and forget that it's actors reading from a script. And this exchange does not feel natural for three separate reasons. Like there's three separate problems in three different lines. Like it's like 5 seconds of fucking screen time. And I was like so annoyed because Kirsch's line about Moro's crewmates is already forced. Like, you lost a lot of friends today. Like, why would a synthetic care about that kind of stuff in a moment like this? And Moro's response is also bad because he says, I don't have friends. And then slightly comes in with a line that has nothing to do with anything because everybody needs friends, as
well, I
that's
suppose you get away with that because he's like, and this is like a crutch that the writers use throughout this series. They're kids, they're stupid, they're naive, they'll say these kind of things, and it's like,
of
no,
course.
this is just bad writing.
I understand he's supposed to be a child and children can say random things from time to time, but everybody needs friends. That's some Sora from Kingdom Hearts type shit. And it's bad because I don't know if it would have been better this way, but if you need to set up the line, everybody needs friends for later, then, Moro could have been like, oh, friends, you misunderstand. This is a mission for me. I don't need friends. It's a bad line anyway, but it's a little bit better because then Slightly's response would make more sense because you're actually commenting on something that Moro is saying, that he doesn't need friends. And he's like, actually, no, everyone needs friends. Does this make sense? Am I the only one who was bothered by this? Because I was like, why is this in the show? And then, later on, you figure out that the reason why is because they needed that line for later, but it's so clunky.
Yeah. And it's I mean, everything about I was already kind of thrown off to the point of this scene where that wasn't something that proper stuck out to me, even though I get it definitely seems forced and contrived. But the it was really shame because Moro is an interesting character. He's probably the most interesting character in the show so far.
Yeah.
And you feel the sense of danger. Like immediately when he rocked up and the two, like Slightly and the other, was it Smee? Was it Smee and Slightly?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, oh shit, like he's gonna kill these little kid synths. Like, let's go. And I think even I said to my brother, I was like, if he kills one of them, at least I'm back on board with the show. And obviously, annoyingly, he didn't, even though he has murdered everybody else who's come in his way, pretty much. So immediately I was like, okay, well then Moro's gonna falter just as the rest of these characters do in these pivotal moments. But it was a shame because I genuinely felt a sense of tension when he was in the scene with them, and that's why it has some good moments to it. Like I said, when he's uploading that thing and his speech that he goes on was really well delivered, great acting, and the visuals are obviously on point. And then when Kirsch comes into the scene, you're like, oh shit, we're about to see these two go to fucking battle here. And it got really interesting for like a moment, and then like I said, you switch to the Lost Boys and you're like, this is silly.
Yeah, this is silly again. But trying to balance the criticisms with some good stuff. Since you mentioned Kirsch, I still really like Kirsch. I think he's a very compelling character. You mentioned Blade Runner before. He gives me like Roy Batty vibes.
I think that's so intentional.
Yeah,
as
it's
well.
very intentional. I think, Alien franchise and Blade Runner franchise are supposed to take place in the same universe or something.
Yeah,
Like,
I think Ridley Scott said that before. So after that scene, Morrow jumps out and he speaks to Yutani, and we learn that he sees the creatures as his life's work, and he doesn't want to just get them back for Yutani. He wants to get them back for himself. And again, there's something quite interesting there.
Yeah.
That's good, and you're like, oh, such a shame that he's this character has to be in this story.
Yeah, both Morrow and Kirsch seems like plucked out from like a good alien movie and placed in a story that doesn't really fit them.
There's another scenes later on, similarly to, when Morrow comes in with the Lost Boys and we have this tension of like, oh my God, is he going to kill one of these kids? There's a good scene with Kirsch later on. Well, I suppose it's not a good scene because it's dumb, but obviously when they bring all the specimens back to Prodigy Lab and they have the fucking Xeno egg just out and about, just wheeled around on a fucking shopping cart, basically. And the CEO of this company, like one of the most powerful people in the world, just walks up to this fucking egg. And Kirsch walks up behind him and he's looking at the egg opening up and he's looking at the boy. And again, I was like, if he fucking holds the boy's head and lets the Xeno get him, I'm back on board with the show. But this show does everything you don't want it to do.
Well, but why would he do that though? He's with the company.
Because he clearly has ulterior motives, as we see in episode 4. He's listening to all the conversations that Slightly is having and he's not reporting it. I think he has some ulterior motives, and he keeps being the boy Prodigy keeps shitting all over him, and there is a tension between those two to the point where I assume he's going to rebel and he will aid in the releasing of all the specimens. And yeah, I was really hoping, I was like, oh my God, if you kill this fucking idiot CEO kid now, I'll love this show.
I mean, he's gonna die in a very horrific way, and we're gonna all clap. But it's it's a few episodes from now. But I still really like this scene because they were setting up the classic alien scene. Guy looks at egg, gets way too close to egg, facehugger comes out of egg and infects guy. But Kirsch comes in, is like, oh, I figured it all out. You should step away if you want to live. I thought it was a fun moment because we're all kind of tired of these predictable alien moments, like in Covenant. Do you remember in Covenant how this happens?
Covenant, so dumb, and in Prometheus, so dumb.
David manages to convince Billy Crudup to look over the egg.
I know.
After basically threatening him a second before.
And he's like, get your face right in there. And he's literally like, bent down into the fucking egg in that scene. But yeah, I mean, I get it. You don't want them to, or they're playing on that stereotypical scene. But why is that egg not encased in something?
I mean, they encase it later. They're like, okay, it's only synthetics in this laboratory from now on. I think, they're figuring stuff out. You don't know that the egg is dangerous at first.
These people are supposed to be the smartest people in the world, Tommy.
Well, I mean, yeah, he just wants to have a very interesting conversation and can't understand that an alien egg could be dangerous for him. But yeah, I think, we can find more interesting ways for the xenomorph to get made. And I think we get just that at the end of the episode, where we basically get this sequence where Kirsch and 2 other Lost Boys are dissecting the facehugger, which great practical effects, by the way. It kind of reminded me of The Thing with the gross out stuff.
Yeah. Probably the best scene, my favorite scene in this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Which really just tells you about
dissecting a facehugger. This is the highlight.
It was good practical effects. Just watching Kirsch dissect the facehugger. Yeah, that was my favorite bit of this fucking episode.
And we intercut this moment with Joe undergoing surgery, and they remove one of his lungs. And then at the end, Kirsch places a little xenomorph embryo inside Joe's lung. And I thought that was a pretty interesting setup, even though I was left kind of like questioning the logic of this action, because when the episode ended, I was under the impression that they took Joe's lung to fix it and that they were going to put it back with the embryo inside. And I was like, that is such a stupid thing to do. But then in episode 4, we're told that his lung was just replaced. So I guess they just wanted to see how the embryo would react to organic matter. And that's why they placed him there. But
yeah. I think even though it's something we've seen before, it's nowhere near as effective as the facehugger wrapping itself around the neck and implanting the eggs down somebody's throat. That was probably the most visceral and scary, disgusting, interesting thing about the alien life cycle and the xenomorph. And, we've seen so many different sort of alien films try to be like, yeah, actually, this is a way they can do it too. And it's like, it's never as good as what they did in the original.
Like in Covenant, it's just dust.
yeah. It's just like the guy smokes a cigarette and he gets some of the fumes in his lungs and then he has a backburster.
Another thing that is bugging me, and I don't know if it's just a me thing, probably not, knowing the internet, but it's how they're just using the correct terminology for everything. They're literally calling the xenomorph by its name. And I guess, they have data and files and like illustrations of their biology. So it makes sense that they would have this information and they would use these names to call stuff. But it feels a bit weird to hear characters in universe casually using the word xenomorph.
It further highlights one of the issues that you raised in the last review we did. You said it messes with the lore and the timeline because, we know so much about the Xenos. Apparently, Weyland-Yutani and Prodigy and the world now potentially knows a lot about Xenos, but they're a mystery in the films that come after, supposedly. So yeah, it does throw that all into question. And yeah, it feels fan servicey or like a fan film when you hear characters say it in the script.
Yeah. Other than that, cool setup with the embryo in the lung. We get this strange connection between Wendy and the aliens because she wakes up and she hears this sound in her brain. And the sound gets closer and harder as she gets closer to the facehugger that's being experimented on, dissected. And she then collapses to the ground and we get that she's in some way connected to the aliens. And I don't understand why, don't understand how, but I guess they will explain it and it will be stupid.
Because she is the chosen one. Because we hear this before, don't we? We've heard it in, I think, episode 2. We hear the clicking of the aliens.
Yeah, which is weird because at first I was like, is this like a result of the head injury that she got while fighting the xenomorph?
Yeah.
But she was already feeling this before.
And it was something I think we both theorized that, maybe, just because she's such an intelligent machine that she can tune into the frequency of what they're saying. And that's kind of what's happening.
Yeah.
But in the next episode, they go on to explore that even further. And now there's almost like a Midsummer type link. You know how like all the women like sync up in Midsummer?
Oh my God.
It's kind of like, it's almost like she dropped on the floor in episode 3. She was like feeling the pain that the baby Xeno was going through. And, she references it as, it's not a creature, it's a baby. And it's like, oh God, are you going to try and fucking like humanize the Xenos right now or something? Or like try to make them sympathetic or empathize with
They're going to give it a little plushie in the next episode to play with. And we'll figure out that actually all they needed all this time was love.
Exactly. And the fact that she can just wake up and free roam, run around this secret lab is also dumb,
And Joe immediately gets to her side, like he's already in the lab, like there's no...
He has free roam of this secret facility, she has free roam, even though now, also in episode 3, we established that Prodigy can see and hear everything the synths are doing, which throws a lot of other things into question when you realize everything is being monitored. It's like, okay, well then everyone should know that Wendy's up and she's moving around and that she's awake. You would have like a whole team of people working on this project. It's the biggest project in the whole company's repertoire. So yeah, I suppose before we move on to the next episode, because this comes into play in the next episode, we have even more Blade Runner exploration here with the ginger girl synth.
Oh yeah, that's something that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, she's sort of losing her mind, and she became like really obsessed with the eye creature in episode 2, and now she's like keeps poking her eye in episode 3, and she's somewhat like questioning her existence and her humanity. And yeah, it's like, again, this is like another whole story that you could do. There's too much stuff going on in Alien Earth. The rescue mission from the ship with the specimens could be a whole story in itself, and the kids in the synth bodies could be a whole story in itself, and there's so much going on, and it's all very surface level.
I don't know. Maybe it's all gonna come together in a very neat way at the end. But as of now, on episode 4, I doubt they will manage to bring these storylines together. And the red-haired lady, as you said, I guess they're trying to show various ways that a person can react to being transplanted into a synthetic body. And she is the one who's kind of rejecting the whole thing, feeling like she's still human, and that's what the sequence where she touches her eyes about. Oh my god, I was screaming. But I don't know, I think the way the character is portrayed is not really working for me.
No.
Especially now we're gonna get into episode 4 and then the whole scene with the doctor lady, but I don't really gel with this person. One lost girl that I like, and I forget the name unfortunately, but she's the one that goes to talk to Boy Cavalier, and we get some character development for her. We understand that she's ambitious and jealous of Wendy's status as his favorite, and that she's clearly being set up to be some kind of rival or antagonistic force. And the conversation between the two was intriguing, even though as you mentioned, it was kind of like explaining stuff to the audience that we don't really need to hear. But she's a character that has potential for me. She sounds like an intelligent kid.
Yeah,
trying to impress.
Yeah, she's not a complete idiot child like the rest of them, so it makes it a little bit more interesting. And they introduce the idea that she's uploading things, and she learnt French in an hour and things like this, and she wants to be the number one synth for the Kid Cavalier. It gets worse in episode 4, and there's touches of it in episode 2, but whoever the writer of these episodes, I'm not sure whether it's the same writing team throughout the series, but maybe check these writers' hard drives, because for some reason they are really obsessed with wanting to have sexual conversations with kids who have been implanted in adult bodies. I said it to my brother when they first introduced the idea of the kids going into the adult bodies. I was like, there is going to be some scenes, I guarantee you, where there's some sexual stuff, or that we are dealing with a relationship between one of the synths and somebody else, or two of the synths, and this is going to start to get a bit in uncomfortable territory. And for some reason, the writers are obsessed with having these kids have sexual conversations throughout the series, and I don't know why. It doesn't serve much to the story.
Well, you think so. I think it all feeds into the theme of humanity versus machine. What is a life formula? Like even the aliens at this point, they are treated as assets, but you see the biology of this creature. You see an embryo being kind of like birthed into like a full-fledged being. So I think, this theme of rebirth is permeating the whole show.
It's always been important in Alien.
You have these kids being placed into synthetic bodies and being reborn that way, and the question of, are they still in there? Are they a completely new thing? So, they're trying to explore themes that are consistent with the franchise and consistent with the story that they're trying to tell. I'm agreeing with you that they're not succeeding, but I think the way they're addressing these topics in conversation is to bring attention to the theme, which is, something that they're doing quite blatantly and with not much subtlety.
Yeah, I guess it's somewhat thematic, but I suppose having, Wendy chat to the scientist man about sperm and things like this, and the birds and the bees, and now we've had a similar conversation with the doctor woman and talking to the ginger synth who thinks she's pregnant. And it's like, oh, do you know how men and women have sex? And it's like, no, she doesn't, because she's 10 years old. And I don't think you should be the one who explains this to her. But I don't know. I think it's weird. And the fact that you want, as a creative choice, to have your Alien series that have kids are in adult bodies and we're talking about sexual stuff. I wouldn't ever go in that direction if I got given the reins to the Alien series.
And that's why you didn't get an opportunity to direct Alien Earth, man.
Yeah, it's just weird, and I wouldn't be surprised if this trend continues to get stranger and it gets more uncomfortable, and we have potentially a relationship with one of these kids since like occurring.
Oh no. I guess we'll see. Anything else you want to say about episode 3, or should we move on to 4?
No, I've accused people of being a pedophile, so
I think we should move on.
we should probably move on to the next episode.
All right, episode 4, Observation. The plot synopsis on IMDb is really short. An unexpected connection is formed while a covert plot puts everyone in danger. So, feelings on this episode are quite similar to episode 3, maybe slightly better. Stuff starts happening, things are moving in the plot. Characters I keep liking: Kirsch, Morrow, Joe, the smart lost girl, as we're calling her because I forget her name. They keep being the best part of the show for me. What about you? Is this an improvement on episode 3, or
Maybe it's slightly better than episode 3.
slightly? Oh, funny. Curly, played by Arena James. Yeah, Curly. Sorry.
Curly's the
She
other
deserves
one.
her name to be said out loud, even though it's a stupid name.
Maybe this one's slightly better because we don't have Wendy killing Xenos with a paper cutter blade in decapitating them in one strike. And the idea of having all these alien specimens and even the Xeno in a lab, in a controlled environment where we can experiment on them, and maybe, you feed different subjects to the Xeno or the face hugger and we see different forms of the creatures birthing. Like that's something that you could delve into, which could be interesting, and add a good scene with the sheep. Again, I think this is the stuff I'm enjoying. It's so surface level, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that was the best part of the episode for sure. But can I just say something that you made me think of? This show is called Alien Earth, and one of the hooks. Hook. Am I referencing Peter Pan too? Am I becoming...
The Kid Cavalier would explain that to you as well after you said that. It'd be like, well, actually, that's just like Captain Hook.
Yeah, but like one of the interesting things about an alien show set on Earth was to finally see Earth. Earth was a place that we've never really visited in the Alien franchise before, because we were always somewhere else. We were always in space or on some colony or some other planet. So, it was interesting to see the state of Earth in the year 2100, whatever. And I think in 4 episodes, we've seen 5 minutes of Earth as like a town and a city. Like, we've spent time on a crashed ship, which is a very alien kind of setting, and that's fine. And now we are in a laboratory, and there's no real interaction with the real world, the world out there. We only see Morrow, which, keeps being the most interesting character, maybe also because of this. But we only see Morrow out there in the world, interacting with people and seeing, this little market and this house, and those are interesting things. But
it's almost like a futuristic, like Thailand or like Vietnam kind of like look that it has, which is interesting. But,
really love that.
You get so little of that, and even the laboratory setting is pretty similar to what we've had before. It doesn't feel that different from the settings we've had in Prometheus and previous Alien iterations.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens in this episode? We have the red-haired lost girl. She gets a little bit of a spotlight in this episode. We have this tense, I guess, scene with the doctor lady where she kind of like threatens her. She could snap her neck in a second if she wanted to. I don't know. We mentioned this briefly before. I think it's kind of interesting that she's going mad, and the fact that she's super strong makes for a potentially cool development for her. But as of now, I just find her annoying. I don't get her deal.
And several of the other...
Like, what happened to her? She was traumatized by the alien and now she's crazy? Like, or was she crazy before?
I don't know whether I don't think she would kind of, before she sees the eye alien, and that's kind of what sends her. She keeps like staring at it after she meets it for the first time. Before that, she's just saying like silly things, and she gives you a couple lines where she's like, I miss home, or I want to sleep, or something like that.
Yeah, she's complaining about stuff.
So it's like you're not getting the sense that she's questioning her reality. This is something that's kind of was maybe spurred on after the meeting with the alien. But a few of the actors playing the synths as well are really bad, and they think that acting like a kid is just standing on the spot and swaying your shoulders left to right as you look like up.
Do my boy slightly this bad. Like, I think, he's doing a decent job.
Kids do that in fucking cartoons. Like, they are acting like such cartoonish version of what a kid should be. And especially like in this scene, her performance is fucking terrible, I thought. And it's
Yeah.
crazy that there's actually not like a safety switch. Do you know what I mean? Like the doctors don't have like a shutdown control of the synths. Because let's face it, if they went haywire and you have put the mind of children in the bodies of synths, and it's like the first time it's ever been done, there is a very high chance that they're going to be volatile and hostile as the situation develops. But
I mean, they had a protocol in place, but maybe she should have like a remote on her person at all times that she can just,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I assume, like, even if two soldiers with guns probably are going to struggle to take on a synth, I'd imagine.
Yeah. So yeah, some inconsistencies and some weird stuff. But then we have a scene that I really liked, which is the conversation between Joe and the bald guy. Adrian Edmondson is the name of the actor.
Yeah. We finally get a bit of explanation why fucking Joe is still around,
Yeah.
which I appreciated.
Yeah, they discuss what Wendy is. Is she Marcy? Is she just a robot with her memories? Is she something else? I think, these questions are at the core of the show, and they are what makes it slightly engaging. They still feel disconnected from the main alien threat that the show should be about. But I
Yeah.
guess, as I already said, I need to keep watching to see if and when this stuff connects.
They even have like, I don't know whether it's like a meta line, but they have like a few of the other scientist characters or the prodigy workers say to the Kid Cavalier, it's like, the synths were our main project, like let's focus on the synths. And he might be like, oh, well, also the aliens are interesting too. And I think the doctor lady in this episode says, well, we can do two things at once. And it's like is that meta to be
Is
like,
that the show?
well, the story yeah. And it's like, ooh, look at us. We could do two things at once.
We're doing aliens and weird synthetic boys. Yeah, there's some goofy stuff in here. Something that I found goofy was the way Wendy can talk, so to speak, with the alien. Like the way she just produces the sound with her mouth. I mean, I understand the logic, I guess. It makes sense. She doesn't really have like vocal cords, maybe.
Yeah, she's a robot.
But like, what happened? Like, and I don't understand, like, how are they gonna explain this connection? And I guess that's interesting, and that's a question for the show to answer in an interesting way. But I'm just like, how are they gonna make sense of this? The other Lost Boys don't seem to have the same connection with the aliens that she does. So what makes her special? Why she like, what happened to her? Like, I don't understand how this could make any sense.
I know. I'm so intrigued to see what bullshit reason they're going to come up with why they have this intrinsic link. Because it's not going to be satisfying, I'm sure.
I mean, don't be so hopeless.
We also have the very beginning of this episode, the kid genius, Kid Cavalier, strolls in and he's like, why has everybody got long faces? We're breaking ground or scientific ground. And then he says, and I've got a colonic at 2 p.m. or something. And it's like, oh, great. That's what I want from my villain, to come into a room and be like, I'm going to get poop sucked out of my butt.
I mean, he's an evil guy, so
he's an evil guy. He needs poop sucked out of his butt. And we all need to know about that.
He can't poop on his own. Also, thank you for explaining what a colonic is, because I didn't catch that. And now I'm just picturing this guy doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, so other goofy stuff. Moro's plan, I don't get it. He sounds like such a smart guy, and the actor is doing a terrific job portraying this character.
What do you mean? Manipulating a child robot who's being monitored 24/7 by the people you're trying to steal from is a genius plan.
And also, like, of all the Lost Boys he could have tried to, get in contact with, he relies on Slightly to bring him back an alien egg. And my question to you, Tyler, is what was he hoping Slightly would do? Because he asks him to bring him the egg once. right? And then we have this very goofy scene where Slyly tries to get into the lab. He runs into another of the Lost Boys. He gets scared and leaves.
Yeah, such a pointless scene.
And then only after that, they have this other conversation where Morrow has found his mother, Slyly's mother, in the real world because, he managed to get his full name because he's so smart. And while he's threatening his mother, he suggests that he brings a human into the lab and in front of the egg, which on paper is a cool development because now Slyly wants to bring Joe into the lab and, conflict. But like the way they did this was clearly just a way to pad time. Like they needed the episode to be an hour long.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, Morrow can't come up with the plan of infecting a human with the egg right away. So we're going to have this pointless scene where Slyly tries to get into the lab. But what is he going to do if he gets into the lab? Is he gonna
give me the scene of him walking around the labs like subtly with a massive fucking egg in his hands. Give me that scene.
Because the only way to get the alien out of the lab was to infect a human with an embryo. You couldn't do it in any other way. Like, what is he gonna just take the xenomorph egg and just walk around? Like, as you said, like it's so contrived.
Yeah. Like you said, it's probably just a pad time. There's 8 episodes. They need to fill in these fucking gaps because it made no sense on either people's part and damages Morrow's character because you're like, oh, you think he'd have some fucking genius plan to do this.
Yeah. Oh well, what else happens?
We have the first observation scene.
Oh yeah,
they have the sheep, and we've
seen the one cool scene.
Yeah, the
that's
one
right.
the one cool scene. We have the sheep. We see how the alien eye kills its prey and then takes over the host and just sort of is staring at the Kirsch and Kid Cavalier. And I don't really know, like, the focus on this is just because we're going to get some payoff where probably the eye thing kills Kid Cavalier or maybe one of the important characters like later on. But like, other than that, there's nothing that these scenes are really serving.
I was hoping for them to explore the biology of these new aliens a bit further, but we only see the eye guy and briefly those slugs that suck up your blood. The fake plant thingy we don't really see anymore.
Disappeared for like 2 whole episodes pretty much, yeah.
And I'm like, so we've discussed what the theme seems to be in this show, and it's a fine theme to have, but it feels like it's a confused show because you have the xenomorph, but then you're like, okay, let's not just do the xenomorph. In this universe of the alien, there must be some other deadly alien species that we can use. So we are gonna do some new species and we're gonna explore their biology, and they're gonna kill people in gruesome ways, and it's gonna be really fun for the whole family. But then you just focus on the xenomorph for like 3 episodes because he's the main antagonist of the first 3 episodes of the crash site is this xenomorph that is like running about. Then they kill the xenomorph, and now you have time to develop like these other alien species throughout like the new batch of episodes that you get. And then at the end of episode 4, we already have a new xenomorph. So I'm like, when are we developing these other aliens, and what are they gonna do? I was hoping for the eye one. If it feels Boy Cavalier, the CEO kid, it's not like, he can puppeteer him in a way to make him do something cool. He's just gonna be a corpse.
Do you think so? I thought Kirsch has a line that says, as they're reading the brainwaves of the
it's very intelligent.
Yeah. It's like it's highly intelligent. So I think it's going to take over Kid Cavalier or another important human character, and it's going to be able to mimic them. They're going to be able to speak. I don't know how they're going to make it, not obvious that it's taken over by the eye thing, but I think there's going to be a scene like that later on, because they made a point to say how intelligent it was.
I hope so, but like once it's embedded into a person's face,
it looks obvious.
It's so obvious. Like even if you wash off the blood,
or you get a scene like one of the doctor characters is faced away and they're like talking and doing stuff, and then they turn around and you see that the eye is there or something like that.
I hope we get a creepy scene like that. Yeah.
No, but probably we've created a better something better than what the show will do, I imagine. But we shall see. But yeah, that's like I agree that this whole episode observation should have been seeing each of the specimens and how they react to a sheep, or how they react to like a human host, or you know, weird. This should have been all experiments about the creatures, and I think it would have been a much more focused and better episode. But they're trying to do Alien, and they're trying to do Blade Runner, and they're trying to do Peter Pan all in one fucking episode. It's it's a bit all over the place.
Yeah. There's too much stuff happening, bro. I can't keep up.
And
And not because it's complicated.
not at all. And yeah, like you said, then sort of the final scene is the new Xeno is being born, and Wendy is able to hear this process, so she goes and manages to get into this lab again. She got free reign of this fucking facility.
Yeah.
And Kirsch is watching on, and we see that not only are they able to communicate with each other, there is a connection, an emotional deep connection between the Xeno and Wendy, and she almost is like stroking it like a little pet.
Yeah. It's strange. Sorry, I was looking at the IMDb page for Alien to look for like little stuff that we could chat about, and I figure out, well, IMDb told me, but like the character of the doctor, Dame Sylvia is her name. She is the mother in the Babadook.
Yeah.
Did you recognize her?
She's also, I recognized her. She's also in another couple of films I've seen, but yeah, I've seen her in quite a few
Yeah,
things.
she's good.
She's good, yeah. I mean, yeah, but the adults, the actual adults in the series, most of them are acting pretty damn well.
Yeah.
And their actions seem to be clear, and they're written a bit better. Yeah, there's too much of a crutch placed on the kid characters, and it's just poor writing. Yeah, what did you... We gave a rating to the first two episodes. I think I gave it like a 5, maybe a 6. I'm not sure. I hope I didn't give the fucking first two episodes a 6. Otherwise, I'd like to revise my rating to a 5.
I seem to remember a 5 or a 5.5.
Yeah, and I think you gave the first two a 6.
I mean, it is a 6.
The first episode is the best episode so far, and it has steadily declined, I'd say, since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, what would you give these next two episodes?
Episode 3 was mostly boring, with the exception of a couple of interesting conversations here and there. It was mostly set up, and I really liked the ending and the dissecting of the facehugger. So, it's a 5 for me. And episode 4, it's slightly better. We have the, observation scene that you mentioned that was really cool. And I think, the effects with the eyeball alien are pretty cool for a TV show. There's again, a few conversations that I liked and that made me think about themes that I think are intriguing. So I guess it's a 5.5. It's like it's slightly better than episode 3, but not a 6 for me.
Yeah, I'd say both of these drop down to like a 4 out of 10 now for me. It's below average, and I think we've said this before as well. Like, I think when you're making something that's an IP, especially beloved, and me and you, we love Alien, and we know there's such great potential with this show. I do grade it even more harshly than I would a series without those connections. So yeah, this is below average for me, and it's damaging for me. It's actually damaging the Alien property, even though people probably think that happened a long time ago.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, it's like Star Wars. Star Wars has like 3 good movies, and then there's a bunch of expanded lore and material that's really cool, but like the really good stuff is not what you want, from a franchise that you love.
Yeah, but obviously you loved Andor though, right? And that was a more recent show, so it things like that show.
Yeah.
There's still always that if you bring talented people on board and creative people who are interested in the IP and passionate about it, you can always make a good story set within these rich universes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone can make something as good as Andor, but I will get any opportunity I have to glaze that show, which is a miracle of mankind. Unfortunately, they didn't get Tony Gilroy to make Alien Earth. They got Noah Hawley, and is not doing the best job so far.
No, and we're at the halfway point, and imagine what Cameron or Ridley Scott back in the day, could have done we've had like 4 hours almost of screen time, how much story
Yeah.
and character could have been told in that time, and really we are tiptoeing around many of these themes that they want to delve deep into.
And also, like he talking about the showrunner, I don't know if the show itself is going to fold back in a way where it makes sense within the larger Alien universe, especially relating to the first few Alien films. But, he said in interviews that he was going to kind of ignore Prometheus and Covenant and all that stuff with David that Ridley Scott was attempting. And so far, I haven't seen anything that contradicts or egregiously goes against what those movies were setting up. But when a creator says something like that, I feel like you're not the right person for the job. Like Romulus, was not a great film, but Fede Alvarez was smart enough to try to put everything in there. Like, oh, we're going to put a bit of Alien, a bit of Aliens, but we're not going to throw away the black goo and all that stuff that was established in Prometheus, because we know that some of the fans love that stuff. And Prometheus has many issues, that movie, but it's 1,000 times better than this show. And it's 1,000 times more profound in what it's trying to say and explore. So, you should pay respect to Ridley Scott and what he created. And you should try to homage everything that came before, not just the stuff that you like and that the execs at FX told you to do because,
Yeah. You don't need to include the black goo. And Romulus, even Romulus didn't need to have the black goo in it. It was one of those things that when they mentioned it, I was like, oh, I'm surprised they're actually even referencing this in Romulus. And you just need a good story with good characters, and then plop the themes and the the actual creatures of the Xenos into the story pretty much, and you've got yourself a successful Alien film.
Yeah, those elements that you mentioned are harder and harder to come by these days. But we'll see. Maybe it's gonna surprise us. It's gonna be an amazing finale to this show, but unfortunately I doubt it. But we'll keep watching and keep reviewing. This is fun. This is the best part of watching the show, is talking about it with you, Tyler.
Of course. You're just like the Kid Cavalier. You just want somebody super intelligent to just chat to. I get you, brother.
Just because I can't talk to myself, I'm gonna get the next best thing.